Morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of the MPC Markets Morning Call, 18th of September 2025. After rushing to work this morning, trying to get in, we got in early, check in on the Fed. I think I'm probably feeling a lot like every other investor in the world, and highly underwhelmed by the Fed's decision. So we got exactly what we wanted. It was probably the happy median between Trump and the Fed. They've basically flagged further rate cuts. So this is where the dot plots, which is possibly the most annoying way to show voting anyway. But in June, we had everyone up here at between 4.5 and 3.5. So the dots obviously represent a vote. And there you can see there it's much higher. And now basically you've seen a lot of those dots shift a little bit lower. I would expect this one dot is the bloke that President Trump put in. At least there's, at least we know exactly what's going on there. But there is an overwhelming number down the bottom here. It was very steady as she goes, it was, as I said, pretty underwhelming, really. And there wasn't a lot of commentary around it. I think what Chairman Powell was trying to do basically was stay out of the firing line overall. So Trump's response was quite funny, though. Let me just read out the Truth Social post. And Jerome Powell just cut interest rates by a tiny, in capital letters, 25 basis points. Wow, what a genius move, said no one ever. What a total idiot. It should have been 100 basis points. So yeah, basically he says, let's pick up the pace, Jerome, 100 basis points next meeting or you're fired. As we all know, he can't fire him. That's why he's in this position, and that's why he's saying things. But good of him to take some time out of his day from in the UK, where he's sitting with some of the richest and most powerful people in the world, trying to do a bunch of deals that'll help the American economy. That he could still, tweet that his central bank head is an idiot. Not very presidential, but on the upside, you definitely know what he's thinking. So yeah, we can't get rid of Fed as chair at all, and they've looked into the legalities and the Constitution, etc. They've obviously replaced that Lisa Cook, and they've been going through the dirty laundry of all the Fed members. But the fact that they didn't feel the pressure to do 50, I believe, means that on the plus side, you've probably got a squeaky clean board of Fed members, because there's only really one dissenter here, and he's Trump's man. So where Trump's going to attack this now is from, he's just going to give them the stats to put them under so much pressure. So I would, as I've discussed in previous podcasts, morning calls, is that he's got Ejan Tony going in to run the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. We've already had that payrolls revision, which was the largest in history, and I'm pretty sure that he's going to attack it from that angle. I would say, because whilst the Fed needs to remain and central banks need to remain independent, the US government, and it's not Trump's fault. Well, it's not singularly Trump's fault. It's every president since Bill Clinton's fault for racking up this debt. That larger issue there is, is that they've got to refinance $7 to $9 trillion worth of debt, and a couple of 100 basis points in rate cuts makes a huge difference, about $500 billion a year, and makes it mathematically possible to pay it off. So as you can see, if last night was an emoji, it would be meh. You got a little bit of steam coming out of some of the Dow was up a little bit. We're a little bit of steam coming out of the S&P and the NASDAQ and the Russell. Essentially, last night's weakness in the NASDAQ and the S&P would have been driven by NVIDIA. We are now strong sell and neutral in the Aussie market, which doesn't surprise me. Hang Seng and China were up yesterday, so we are starting to see a rise in the China hyperscalers, so the Baidus and Alibabas of the world. They're all sort of and various versions of the same, of the same sorts of companies in the US. But Tencent, Baidu, ByteDance, Alibaba, really getting a bit of a positive buzz about them because China has gone out and banned Chinese companies from buying chips from NVIDIA. A mandated halt to purchases and testing. Its targeted chips are the RTX Pro 6000D and the H20. And they're basically pushing all of the Chinese AI hyperscalers to, local models, Huawei, Cambricon, and new local chips. But they're pushing a lot of money and significant investment into R&D. So good strategic move, and the benefit of being a communist nation or quasi-communist nation is that you make a decision, you don't have to worry about getting voted back in, so they can do these fairly hardline things. And Baidu was up considerably last night, or at stages yesterday, over 10%. And but what we've seen here, as you can see, NVIDIA and taking the brunt of the hit there. So the broader market was actually relatively positive overall last night. And we've got Costco earnings coming up next week. Tesla was still positive. But yeah, NVIDIA, I mean, there's some pretty big companies. Obviously, though, as I've said a number of times, those squares are relative to how much weighting they have in the S&P 500 index. So yeah, it's not good news for NVIDIA. Jensen expressed his disappointment, basically. But look, there's been we sort of thought there was something going on a week or two ago, because we were looking at the Asia ETF in Australia and seeing how well it was going. NVIDIA really was saved by that Oracle earnings. It was the price action was not very positive. It wasn't buy in the open every day and up it goes. And Broadcom had a decent result, but it coming back as well. So I was a little, prior to, you can actually see here, this move down here was happening. And then that jump there was Oracle based, and now we're just starting to drift back off again. So I would say around this that low 160s mark, it will be initial intraday sort of support. And then you've got around the 145, 150 mark as more medium-term support. I can't see it ever really getting back below $100 anymore. Got to say, that NVIDIA was one of the stocks we bought when in that April period, and I'm glad we bought it because I don't really see it coming back. But look, revenue by region here. It's about 13%, and you can probably count this 18% as China as well, because they've been caught a number of times either via Saudi Arabia or Singapore buying chips for the Chinese, which it is what it is, as if it's not going to happen. So yeah, we're talking about, and this is probably about 4 or 5 months old. So, but the Chinese revenue is currently around the 18 billion mark. But Jensen was talking about that market being like a 50 billion revenue opportunity. So I mean, we're fairly significant. But where we were, talk in the office was like, it feels like there's something coming in China, like a bit of a DeepSeek moment, but in terms of chips, not in terms of a large language model. So, and we are so these inference chips as well, because you just don't necessarily need. I mean, you need these powerful GPUs for training, but you don't necessarily need it to do, a lot of the tasks. So, NVIDIA's advantage of one size fits all, just brute force power. It's like it's like a V12 engine. Whereas these Chinese chips will likely be your your smaller engines with a turbo, I suppose is a good analogy. But this daily chart here as well for NVIDIA. So we're still in uptrend mode there. The MACD's double crossed to the downside, which is not a good thing on the daily. And then this is just the green and reds here. They're essentially, the fact that it failed at this means that we would be it's not a long-term downtrend, so we would still be relatively positive. But on that red signal there, we probably would have trimmed based on our system here at MPC. The MACD double cross that heading back into neutral territory down here, and the fact that our sort of pivot point strategy here. We will probably trim a little bit more, and I think that's going to be, as I show here, this is an enormous section of the market. So weakness there is going to extrapolate into weakness in the broader index. So Apple had an announcement as well about, they weren't announcements, but they had iPhone sales in China down 6% leading into the new iPhone 17. That's less than usual, but they have had escalated orders for the next one, so that probably evens itself out. And there's rumors floating around that, and this is a huge announcement, folks. Apple, for the first time in a decade, has announced an improvement to the iPhone that doesn't involve a new camera and a new processor. So they're looking at foldable phones, which, of course, Samsung's had for 2 years. But, progress. Any progress is good progress, because their lack of innovation is, technology moves so fast. I really can't see them holding on to any stranglehold in the smartphone market if there's a leap in technology. And there's rumors floating around about Meta's smart glasses and things as well, and progressing a lot faster than thought. Uber's down here quite a bit as well, as Lyft had a decent, I think they had some earnings results last night, but also announced a partnership with Waymo. Sorry, I always get confused. Waymo, which is Google's extraordinarily second-rate self-driving car. So yeah, I would probably back Tesla and Uber every day of the week against Lyft and Lyft and Waymo. Lyft and Waymo are like the Diet Coke of rideshare servicing and fully self-driving cars. So I wouldn't read too much into that. And we'll just skip ahead here now. Not much left. We've got FedEx will be tonight. Aussie employment today, expecting 21,000 and somewhere around the 4.2 mark, I would assume. Bank of England tonight. Trump took a bunch of the world's richest people to he took Tim Cook, Jensen, Sam Altman to a dinner last night where the Brits were very, very nice to President Trump. All sorts of official pomp and ceremony. So they expect there to be some deals announced there. Palantir announced like a $920 million deal on the back of this UK thing. So look, Trump's doing, it's good to have a president who wants to go and do business and try to live from that side. Just some stats that I heard actually on the on Trump with tariffs and why the market's made it white noise now is he's made over 60 major announcements since April. So that's really why the market it's become very much white noise when Trump makes an announcement on this. I think he's being much more productive doing what he's doing here at state dinners and things, and hustling to get deals done, and that's what his strength is. Talking maybe not so much, but yeah, it obviously is a pretty good or pretty positive thing for the world's most expensive stock, Palantir, and in that defense sector, and maybe expect some more deals to come out potentially for Apple as well. Gold and silver got whacked. There was obviously a fair bit of hope built in for 50 basis points, and I put my hand up. I kind of thought they might get a 50. I thought the political pressure was too much, but didn't happen. That's pushed the US dollar up 0.36, which is most of what this weakness is. How it reacts next is probably the most important thing. I'd be very closely watching price action in the indexes over the coming few days and the next week, because I think with this now out of the way, it's very pivotal. So we are expecting 2 more cuts this year. And Trump not getting his way and not getting, well, he said 100, but not even getting 50, means that he'll apply pressure, but he'll just it'll just be another pressure point. So the man is not known for just giving up and being reasonable. So expect the unexpected, as we always say with Trump, overall. And just back to that Palantir point before, just to let you guys know, anyone who watches most days, we've got a webinar coming up in around the defence sector on the 7th of October. It'll be a free webinar. Check out the socials in the coming days for where you need to register. Aussie market today, I don't think we're going to do much, to be brutally honest. She's hit the snooze button. Maybe go and enjoy the sun if you're in Sydney, and we'll speak again tomorrow morning.